How to make a mini garden in your room. Creating a one-pot garden with multiple plants. Why only have an outdoor garden when you can have your own miniature garden in your room? Having a small garden in your room is a great way to make your room look connected to nature or even trendy. The little garden won't need too much taking care of, so it's a great choice if you don't have much time to care for a big garden. 1. Find a suitable container or small pot. There are many different containers you can house your mini garden in, such as bowls, plastic lunch containers, and terracotta pots. It would be worth looking for a container with small holes at the bottom for the water to drain through. Patterned containers can look good in any room. If you do choose a pot with drainage holes, you may also want to place a small tray or saucer underneath to catch any water that drains through. This can be especially helpful if you plan to keep the garden on a piece of furniture that could be damaged by water. If you want to have many plants in your garden, make sure that the container or pot is wide and deep enough to fit them all. Some plants need more space, so it will be helpful to research how much space each plant will take up. 2. Get potting soil. You will need indoor potting soil to lay down at the bottom of your container, or some nutrient-rich soil from outdoors if you have it available. You can find potting soil at a local plant nursery or the garden section of your local hardware store. Be careful if you plan to use outdoor soil. It may contain pests or diseases and can often be too heavy or dense to allow for proper draining of potted plants. Potting soil is usually a safer choice. Some plants also have specific soil needs that may not be met by standard potting soil. It's helpful to research the needs of your plants when selecting soil to make sure you pick the right type. 3. Choose plants for your mini garden. When selecting plants for your garden, you should look them up to make sure you can grow them indoors. Plants that won't grow too big are preferable, as your garden is mini. If adding multiple plant types to a single container, make sure the water and light needs are similar for each type. Possible plants for your indoor mini garden include air plant, baby toes, Chinese money plant, Echeveria, jade plant, lithops, string of pearls. 4. Transfer your plants into the soil. Tap the plant out of its original pot carefully. Gently loosen the roots and plant them into the soil. It's a good idea to give your plants a water as soon as they go in. You want your plants to be firmly in place, so pat the soil around them down slightly. 5. Find a spot to place your garden. Your garden should get indirect sunlight, so being near a window is a good idea for the placing. Make sure to find a spot which isn't in full sunlight and only get some sun, so that the plants don't get too much sunlight. Flat, stable surfaces like tables or windowsills are ideal for your garden so that it doesn't tip over or fall. 6. Care for your garden. Once you've made your garden, it shouldn't take up too much of your time, but you will need to take care of it by watering it and trimming it when you feel it needs water or a trim. As a general rule, water the garden when the soil feels dry. Depending on what you have in your small garden, you may have to water some plants more than others. For example, succulents don't need as much water as herbs or other plants. Don't overwater your garden. Only water it if its soil is dry. Otherwise, the plants might die. This is the most common way indoor plants die. As your mini garden grows and thrives, some of the leaves might start to take up too much space. If so, give the plants a small trim using gardening shears. Make sure to open the curtains or blinds at daytime so your plants get sunlight. Creating one-plant pots. 1. Find several suitable pots. Terracotta pots are good to use, but you can also use plastic pots. Pots that match can look good, and patterned pots are great. Ideally, plants should grow in pots which are about the same size as them. If you put a plant in a pot that's too big, the soil dries slowly, making it susceptible to root rot. It should have small holes for the water to drain through and for air circulation. 6. It's also helpful to keep small plant saucers beneath the pots to catch any excess water that drains, so that it doesn't drain onto your furniture. See if you can get hanging pots. Hanging pots look stunning and can be put just about anywhere. They should be available at any gardening or hardware store or online. 2. Get potting soil. You will need indoor potting soil to fill your pot with, or some nutrient-rich soil from outdoors if you have it available. You can find potting soil at a local plant nursery or the garden section of your local hardware store. Be careful if you plan to use outdoor soil. It may contain pests or diseases and can often be too heavy or dense to allow for proper draining of potted plants. Potting soil is usually a safer choice. If possible, your soil should be suited to the particular plant growing in it. For example, cacti, succulents, and rosemary prefer a coarse, well-drained soil which can be around a third sand. You should grow seedlings, however, in a light, moisture-retentive, soilless mix. 3. Select plants for your pots. When choosing plants, look them up to make sure they can be grown inside. Plants can be slightly bigger for this method, as they'll have their own pots. Plants you can use for this method include aloe vera, anthurium, asparagus fern, peperomia, snake plant, string of pearls. 4. Transfer your plants into their pots. Gently loosen the roots and plant them into the soil. Dig a hole in the middle of each pot. It should be deep enough so that when you place the plant in, the crown where the roots meet the stem will be level with the dirt. Level out the soil at the surface. Make sure you're gentle with the plant. You won't want to damage it, so be careful as you place it in. 5. Place your plant pots. You'll need to find a suitable area to put your plants in, so that they get enough sunlight and are in view. Putting your plants, which need more sunlight than others, closer to a window or on a windowsill is a good idea. If you have hanging plant pots, you can hang them around a window or to the sides of one. Some plants need less sun, and they can be hung against walls or around a desk. Make sure the plants don't look too cluttered in one spot. If you try to place all your plant pots on one windowsill, it may look slightly cluttered or unorganized. It's a better idea to spread the plants out a bit more. For example, having a plant on a desk, bookshelf, on the floor if it's bigger, and maybe have around 2 to 3 in one area at some point. Combine where you put them, if you can. It looks good to keep some plants in regular pots and some in hanging pots. This can make your room feel much more naturally full of plants. Try putting them on a shelf to display them. This makes a very pretty, natural-looking decoration in your room, which will stand out to you and any other person who sees your room. 6. Care for your plants. You need to make sure plants get sunlight and water, and that they get trimmed if needed. Remember to open the blinds or curtains so that the plants can get their sunlight. Some plants need lots more watering than others. A succulent needs less than herbs or other leafy plants. If overgrowing its pot, giving it a trim is a perfectly acceptable thing to do. Some plants should overgrow their pots and go over the sides. For example, the string of pearls plant grows over the edge of its pot. Make sure to only water a plant if the soil in its pot is drier. You can easily overwater most plants, which is the reason it's the most common way indoor plants die.